Welcome to another exciting episode of Langston's World. I am your host, the Great Beard of Knowledge, and we have an amazing show for you today. Today we are talking about black privilege, right? What is it? What is it really? Charlemagne tried to give us some insight. I think we can do a little better than that, right? And we hear about white privilege all the time, but I'll tell you right now, I will take the Pepsi challenge with white privilege any day of the week. Because that black privilege is some powerful stuff, all right? So while on the subject of black privilege, let's really get into it. This episode, we're going to talk about not only what is black privilege, we're going to talk about where it came from and what the consequences of black privilege are today and how we can use black privilege to do all kinds of amazing things, such as close the wealth gap, to bring equality to a country that was supposedly founded on those principles, as well as improve the overall consciousness and moral virtuosity of our society at large. So let's get right into this black privilege. So black privilege is really about strength through perseverance, right? You only get smarter by solving more challenging problems. You only get stronger by doing more challenging exercises. You only become more forgiving by being afforded more opportunities to forgive, right? And the black man in America has had more opportunities to excel in these various areas than any other man, probably on earth, but definitely in America. So black privilege is like, it's the consequence and the gift of something that was paid for in human lives. It was paid for in the blood that was spilled during the greatest atrocity on earth, the 400 years of chattel slavery in this country. You could go back further. You could look at where it was happening in other places. But this was absolutely egregious and deplorable. So what did that period of time do to black people in America that can still be felt today? It made us stronger. We had to survive on less food. We had to do more work than anyone else. We had to become more cunning to hide our intelligence because reading was an absolute death sentence. And if you were smart and they just thought you were too clever, so for smart people like me to even be here today, my ancestors had to be some double, triple, quadruple agents, right? They had to be so aware of their own capacity to process deep thought that they suppressed it under some kind of act, which is probably contributing to kids being bad in school today. Beside the point. We had to be more charming and entertaining, right? Which, go figure, you know what I'm saying? We had to be able to use our charm and entertainment skills to influence our oppressors into getting certain outcomes. We had to hide our beauty and be humble enough that our children and our mothers and sisters wouldn't get raped. You know what I'm saying? We had to do that to prevent our oppressors from getting jealous of us. So we had to work on humility because the absence therein could result in any number of horrible things, including death, right? So we learned how to forgive and let things go and suppress on a level that I don't think any other people on earth have mastered. And you look at people from other walks of life and backgrounds, getting laid off, their old lady cheats on them, and they're ready to jump off a cliff quick, you know what I'm saying? Or I don't know if you've watched Snapped, they ready to pour antifreeze in somebody's cereal over, all kinds of stuff.
Timmy, you're grounded and you're dead, mom, bitch. You're fucking out of here, man.
And big shout out to Kevin Spacey. I like American Beauty too, but that is, microcosmic of how certain different races deal with trauma. Black people, we gonna just figure it out. We gonna go home. We gonna commiserate. We gonna hit the liquor store on the way in. Not healthy, don't condone it. We gonna eat some comfort food, soul food, part of our culture.
Hey, I know you don't smoke weed. I know this. but I'm gonna get you high today.
just to manage that stress. But
Black Ice perseveres.
That's right. That's right. And as you can see right now, the city is being controlled by lots of oppressive white snow, making it hard for all people to advance. And we don't hear much news about that. Now, do we?
No, we do not.
Well, thank you very much, Brother Darren.
because it's our gift. That's the black privilege thing, our ability to persevere under virtually anything. That's just one of the gifts. Like we're gonna really get into gifts like later on in the show, but right, I'm teasing you guys with the magic of the black people. Okay. So, out of this 400 to 600 year period of time where black people were oppressed in a way that really it was biblical. It was biblical, and I can get into that in another episode, but it was absolutely biblical. What we discovered was the super serum, right? What we discovered was this holy grail that, you see these fictional characters trying to find on, these Avengers programs, trying to find the super soldier serum. We produced the super people out of slavery, out of that 400-year period of chattel slavery. What was created, the race that sits before you today, which is evolved in a non-traditional way. When we think of super soldiers, we think of elite killing machines. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm getting at a group of people that has learned how to forgive, who've mastered perseverance and humility, and these superpowers make it very difficult for the black men in America to be understood by their white counterparts, because they're looking like, oh, that day of reckoning is coming, and you have changed the DNA of black people in America to be at a point where that forgiveness is on a level that allows a race of people to move beyond without expectation, but move beyond something that I don't think any or very few people on earth would have been able to leave in the past. And, meanwhile, back on the Ponderosa, we've got white privilege, right? And white privilege was also financed, but it was financed through not blood, not their own blood, but the blood of my ancestors. And that blood was invested into building barriers to entry, right? Built on using fear as a tactic to disincentivize people of color from pursuing things that could be a threat to their own selfish interests. Barriers such as licensing to prevent people from being able to participate, degrees having to be a requirement, allowing this maze towards the income we want that exists today to exist, right? Because in order to get a degree, which is required to get that good paying job, right, you have to have money. And because nobody has money, we become debt slaves on a whole nother level. We still feel that in a large way today. Permitting, and requiring special appointment. These were the barriers to entry that were often used and are still employed today, which create white privilege. That's really what it is. White privilege is just being able to keep everybody from being able to participate, and it was financed in building these barriers. And what's happening today, which is really interesting, is these barriers are starting to dissolve, right? Because you can suppress the truth for so long, right? But eventually, the truth is going to get out.
Y'all just don't want to believe the truth. You don't want to believe it.
And that's where we live today. We live in a world where information is so readily available. We can go, oh my God, that was my great-great-grandfather that did that to your great-great-grand? Oh, couldn't be. It is, right? And so now we're like, oh man, let's balance this out. Let's stop doing this. This is not good. Let's cut that out, right? And that's where we are today. And what's happening? People of color are starting to catch up, right? People of color are starting to catch up. Why is that a big deal? When black people start to catch up as these barriers come down, what does it do? It lets white people know that the only reason they were that far ahead in every category, from wealth to education to athletics, the only reason you were that far in the lead is because we weren't allowed to participate. We were barred from being able to participate in a meaningful way. And what are we seeing today? The election of Donald Trump was a reaction to these barriers being eroded. And they were like, yo, we need somebody who gonna put these barriers up. We don't care who it is. Who is it? Who's running? He ain't gonna get it done. Donald Trump from The Apprentice?
A well-educated black has a tremendous advantage over a well-educated white in terms of the job market. And I think sometimes a black may think that they don't really have the advantage or this or that, but in actuality, today, currently, it's a great, I've said on occasion, even about myself, if I were starting off today, I would love to be a well-educated black because I really believe they do have an actual advantage today.
Bring him in. We know we can count on him to do whatever is required to get these barriers to prevent, people of color and people from different countries from being able to surpass us in our own country, right? To be able to challenge us for control of and the direction of the country and what is going to be accepted and what isn't. We're talking about a real power shift happening right now. And that's why you see everybody with these MAGA hats on. And while we're on the topic of America, I think it's interesting that we talk about how we have to make America great. Let's make America great, and America first. And let's put America above everything and everyone else. And when they say America, they're not talking about black America. They're talking about white America, who they believe were the founders of this country. Cool. Let me ask you guys a question, all the MAGA hat wearers. If America was number one, why do you have to make it number one? Like, why can't America be number one on its own merit?
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Right? If America was so great, why is it important to express that through military dominance? If we are really great and we really have what everybody wants, why do we have to use propaganda to convince the rest of the world that we're number one? If we're really number one, right, and we are so innovative and so ahead of the curve on things, why do we have to place these tariffs on countries that produce products on a different scale than we do? Like, why don't we just focus on being number one instead of pretending, and then innovate in a way that allows us to dominate, right?
Oh my God! Wow!
But we don't do that because that would be too much like right. That would be too much like right, and it will require us coming to terms with some things about ourselves as Americans that we're not ready to come to terms with. But, that's neither here nor there. So, yeah, maybe your ancestors weren't responsible for creating these barriers to entry and using scare tactics and terrorist organizations like the KKK to scare black people out of going to your schools or opening businesses, or running for political office. Maybe that wasn't you. That's fine. That's worse. You're the very worst because you just waited till the smoke cleared and robbed a dead body.
If I had a rubber hose, I would beat.
You know what I'm saying? You're the worst because you saw, people being victimized, being bullied on the playground. You waited over there by the water fountain to see who was going to win the fight. And then you came out and benefited. You know what I'm saying? Like, what kind of, that's the worst. You watching somebody get their ass whooped, and then you wait till their ass is whooped, and then you benefit. Like, damn, I got no respect for that. So all the people who try to stand on the sidelines of this thing, no, you're in the middle of this with the rest of us. There's no sidelines in human injustice. There just isn't. When you witness it, you are now instantly involved. You are either going to be a part of the crime or you're going to be a part of rectifying the crime. But either way, there's no middle ground. So like all the people, what did I do? You watched it happen and you took advantage. So, shout out to the white people who do get involved, who are serious about catching injustice when it pops off. If you're sitting around listening to somebody tell these jokes.
Okay, so these two black guys walk into a bar, and the bartender looks...
Hey, what are you guys talking about? I was just telling a joke. So the bartender looks around and says, what'll you two fine gentlemen have? And they paid their tab and couldn't have been more...
And you're not saying anything? That's on you. Are now part of the crime. So just pick on what side you want to be on, man. Call that stuff out. And so all the people who are sideline types, I want to ask you guys a question. What if the black man, because we know all this stuff started in the cradle of civilization or somewhere where there's a lot of black people. So imagine if the black man sought to control every resource on earth, right? To enslave the peoples of the earth that didn't look like them, right? Choosing to enslave those people because it allows various institutions to increase the likelihood of people like you being successful in the future. And in the midst of conquering and killing and pillaging and enslaving, they destroyed your history because they knew if you ever figured out who you were, you could follow the breadcrumbs back to reclaiming your own identity and breaking the curse of mental slavery.
Medicine? They discovered type. These were all black people got down. Wait a minute. There ain't nothing in here about whitey. This is ours, Jack. Wait till the brothers hear this. Puna. I'm gonna get this book out of here, baby. This tells the real tea. Puna, this out.
Control yourself, don't you see?
What you mean, Jack? Look at this here. Black people started the music and the brain surgery back in the year 3 BC.
Yes, of course, Puna.
Man, they was getting down. This is it, brother.
Yes,
Everybody gonna know about this. Listen, we can change the history. Civilization will be changed.
By all means.
Yeah, this is gonna be it.
Get the bulldozers. There's nothing here.
But.
Shut up.
What if that happened to white people at the hands of black people? Well, there would be no white privilege, in the sense that exists today. So try to fit that shoe on the other foot, right? And see what it feels like.
Hey, look what they're doing. Oh, get to the other side. I'm not listening, asshole. You're being rough with me. You treat me like a black person. You're gonna get sprayed.
Take that shoe of all this privilege that you get and, trade it with someone who isn't white, right? Consider living a life as a black person and see how that would feel. Every time the flashing lights go off or you apply for a loan, or let's say your name is Sally Smith, a very white sounding name, and that being the difference between you getting a job and not getting a job. Wow. Right? And I just want to take a quick shot at the Celtics, right? Because I hear them talk about how many banners they got hanging. That's a consequence of barriers, because if the NBA was as black as it is today, there's no way you would have won all those banners. Y'all won all those championships when there were like 3 black guys playing, and you happen to have the best black guy.
The Boston Celtics was the first NBA team to start 5 black players. Now, they were rewarded for being so progressive.
With titles.
Yes, but the city did not appreciate it.
Isn't that crazy? You're the best sports team of all time, right? Not just the best basketball team, but the best sports team ever. And during the regular season, you guys are getting 8,000 fans a game. And at the same time, hockey was selling out, right? Bobby Orr and those guys,
right.
They're selling out every game.
That's really what it is. Y'all had the best black guy in the market, and he dominated. Bill Russell was I think he was the first player coach. Come on, man. He should be half owner of the Celtics for everything he did for that franchise. But he's not. And you know what the truth is? He hated Boston.
We did a survey about what we could do to improve attendance. Over 50% of the responses says too many black guys.
There's some interviews where, and I don't want you Bostonians to start hating on Bill, but he knew how racist it was out here in Boston. That's beside the point. Now Boston's different. Since I started the podcast, Boston is great. It's really opened up. I think we've come a long way. Don't you think, Boston? Isn't this a great place to be? So moving right along, moving away from white privilege and moving right along, this privilege that black people have been afforded by virtue of their ancestors has created a situation where the black man is the most feared man in America. And he should be. Because he's like the Terminator. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ever seen that movie where the Terminator, he wouldn't die. Like, whatever they tried, they just couldn't stop the Terminator. That's black people. That's black people. Like, from a genetic standpoint, it's interesting because if a white person gets together with a black person, no matter what, there's going to be some brown babies involved.
What are those Negroes doing in first class? Must be rappers. I better keep an eye on Sarah.
And in that baby, you're never going to get back to white, no matter how hard you try. So it's like, that's got to be scary. If you're a white supremacist, genetically, there's a certain level of inferiority because the black gene is so dominant. And then, you got to think, okay, so we tried slavery. The whole world participated in that. We couldn't keep them down. We tried Jim Crow. We tried 13th Amendment. We got police brutality. We took away his history. We tried everything, and they just won't go away. That's scary. That's some scary stuff. And the other piece of that is our oppressors, the ones that created the system, not your run-of-the-mill, I benefit from your suffering white privilege. I'm talking about the people who are like, look.
Who controls the British crown? Who keeps the metric system down? We do. We do.
Let's go over to Afghanistan and Iraq and blow up everything we can find. Let's go into Egypt and take their artifacts out of Egypt, make fakes, and put them in museums so they have no idea who they are. Let's paint all the figurines white, or at least, if they won't believe white, let's make them tan, but definitely not black. Like, just eradicate all black history. Let's go watch Russian icons. Let's paint literally over all the figures which would depict Jesus as having a fro. If I wasn't bald, I would have one too. And one of these, you know what I'm saying? Like, just imagine, right? Like, if you were the victim of all that and you're still here trying to find your way back to your roots, that's scary. So that's why people are scared, man, because you're indestructible, black man. That's why they're afraid of you. They don't know if you're going to get mad one day and Superman got loose and we were short on kryptonite. That's what they're terrified of. So, like, as supermen, understand what you're dealing with, okay? And be patient with them. They probably don't, just be patient. They're going to figure it out. Another reason the black man is so feared is because they know that a reckoning should be delivered upon them. What reparations is like $97 trillion if you only account for the 220-something million unpaid work hours. That's not counting the injustices of rape, pillaging, physical torture, murder, mutilation. That's just unpaid work hours. So, they know they know they screwed up, and they still haven't taken really responsibility for it. So they're
ducking me, man. Yeah?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Getting really tired. Where's my money? Where's my money? Yeah, you got money to pay for fake mustaches, huh? Yeah. How much you pay for that fake mustache?
$2.99. Listen, you just gotta give me more time.
Don't make a fool out of me, man. Don't make a fool out of me. I want my money. I want my money, man.
Stewie, listen, this is crazy. You got, oh my God. All right, let's go to the bank.
Every time a black person gets mad, they flinch in the room. Like angry black man walks into any room, and you can see how uncomfortable white people get. It's just a natural reflex. I think it's genetic at this point, where an angry black man walks in, and everybody's just kind of, oh man, this is gonna go over. This could go.
Today's forecast, dark and cloudy, and chance of drive-by.
You want to go?
Yo, I suggest you move back.
Then Nick, fire off.
Uh-oh. What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do, Mr. Floor Manager? Go get him, Tiger.
Just mad because you got his order wrong at McDonald's. He said no pickles, and you got Tommy Pickles all over his sandwich. So that's really what it is. It's got nothing to do with us coming at you. Now, you see an angry white person walk into a place, that you better be trying to get something bulletproof in between you and that person, because I'm not saying they're all crazy, boo.
You come home from school, little Timmy in the garage making a bomb. What are you doing, Timmy? Nothing, Mom. Get out of here now. That's why you're fucking out of here.
Ooh, so why take the chance? You pull the ripcord while you there. Black people very different in that respect. And they just, in our white counterparts, by and large, right, they just can't figure out how we got past it. They can't get past how we got past it. So they they're scared. I get it. This black privilege allows us, despite all that, to love our enemies, to forgive our enemies, and work alongside our enemies who've had a 400-year head start. And when we're on the same platform, we pretend like it took the same number of miles for us to both arrive at that point. When in reality, we know we had to go through Snake Canyon, and they just rolled out of bed for us to both be standing at the same point, today. So that's a power. And then you look at like the other Holocaust that's usually compared, and that's the Jewish Holocaust, under Nazi controlled Eastern Europe. That was a Holocaust that was just absolutely monstrous. And I do not believe in playing that game. My ancestors had it worse than your ancestors.
My daddy would kick your daddy's ass all the way from here to China, Japan, wherever the hell you from, and all up that Great Wall, too.
Don't talk about my father.
Don't talk about my daddy.
I don't like playing that game, but let's just do the facts real quick. Just fact check. The reason people aren't afraid of Jewish people when they walk into a room and they're upset, well, maybe you might get sued. But the reason why people aren't like ducking for cover when somebody walks in of Jewish descent, who is the descendant of one of the greatest atrocities of all time, is because they were the largest recipient of aid out of any country, Israel, after World War II. They got more resources poured into Israel than any other country on earth. I mean, we all saw Hotel Rwanda. That was bad. The genocide in Darfur, that was devastating. What's happening in Burma right now, that's terrifying. But the largest recipient in World War II was a long time ago. But still, to this day, the largest recipient of aid out of all the countries on earth, Israel. And the United States alone has given them $142 billion. And black people right here can't get a nickel. Can't catch a break, right? This is why black people in America are seen as, a threat, whereas with the descendants of those afflicted and the direct afflicted of Nazi Germany aren't necessarily people that we're all, putting on a watch list, because we made them whole. Can you imagine where black people would be if in 1865, we got Wakanda, we got our own country, and then we're given billions of dollars to build up our military, to build up our infrastructure, to create jobs and establish trade relationships with the rest of the world. That would legit be Wakanda, right? So post-Holocaust, black people got the 13th Amendment, Jim Crow, segregation, and the Jewish people, leaving the Holocaust of World War II, got a country, got billions and billions of dollars in foreign aid, the sympathy of the entire world, and the entire world condemned Nazi Germany, whereas the entire world actually participated in our Holocaust.
Let us expose the Pope, according to H. Shelton Smith, President Emeritus of Duke University, in his book entitled In His Image, quote, "The Catholic Church and the Pope were directly involved in the institution of slavery. They financed slavery and gave the okay that it was good business to sell Africans."
And offered no meaningful solution to helping us reassimilate into society or give us our own land that we could use to organize any kind of society where we could feel safe. Yeah, that's the cold deal. I mean, I'm not trying to compare, but the during, but the after, brothers got a raw deal on that. We didn't get squat. All that said, these things that we went through as black people during slavery and the period afterwards, up to this day, have endowed us with special abilities to overcome, persevere, and get over any obstacle that's virtually thrown in our path. But that's not it. There's a special ability that black people have. It's like a superpower. And I'm going to get to that in the next section of this show. First of all, do not be ashamed of who you are. Don't be. You haven't done anything wrong, black people. Be proud of who you are. See, there's a lot of misplaced shame in this narrative. And the shame really isn't on black people because we're the victims of the greatest crime on earth. Take a deep breath. Take a load off. Relax your shoulders a little bit. Because now we're going to talk about some other stuff. You're safe now. Those same people who benefited off of the suffering of black people, the same people who oppressed, pillaged, intentionally hid our history, broke up our families, raped our mothers, sisters, wives, children. Those are the people who should be ashamed. Those are the people who should be held in contempt. And there is no shame in being black. If anything, you should be proud of where you came from. Don't be mad at your parents for naming you Shaniqua. Don't be mad at your parents for naming you Jamal. You know what I'm saying? Don't be mad at them because they were brave enough to embrace their blackness, okay? You should be upset with the society that makes that blackness a bad thing. So instead of being ashamed, be proud, right? Because you are living evidence of the greatest crime ever committed. Because if there were no crime, you wouldn't be here, right? If there were no crime, we wouldn't be in this country. So you are living evidence. And what do people do who are guilty of a crime? They try to cover up the evidence. They try to destroy the evidence. Is that not how you feel? I know that's how I feel sometimes. Just like the Jews, they were so proud of who they were and what they overcame during World War II and thereafter. And we should be just as proud, if not more proud, because we got to where we are with no help. So with that said, based on what we've had to overcome, you should be double proud of who you are, what you overcame, black people. All right. Now, last, I promised you this gift that black people have, and you will not be disappointed. This is not a gimmick. Black people have the power of alchemy, right? Black people have the ability to make something out of nothing. Out of nothing. Where black people should have never had an opportunity to succeed, they found a way out of no way. And, you know, I'm going to sprinkle in here, that's probably by the grace of God. I wouldn't be surprised if we were like the lost tribe of Israel, God's chosen people. I'm going to just sprinkle that Easter egg in there. But we have the capacity to make something out of nothing, to turn scraps into soul food, pain into blues, you know, parties in the Bronx into hip-hop, an international powerhouse that is making people wealthy who have no real affiliation with the process through which hip hop was actually created. So, this kind of alchemy is typically triggered by having our backs against the wall, right? And when your back is against the wall, that's when this superpower, which has been passed down over 400 years and distilled and refined to us, is triggered, okay? So when you're going through something, when your back is against the wall, when you're faced with a challenge that you don't think you can get over, don't be upset. No. That's when you really are at your best. So here we are in 2019, and we're ready to activate this power, okay? And you think about this as a power if you look at the average American as the standard for how they respond under pressure and when they don't get their way.
Jesus. Oh, Tom, what am I going to do? What about the mortgage? What about the children's college fund? Oh, Father God.
Look at how black people respond, right? We never come unwound. We just find new and innovative ways to combat whatever the issue or afflicting factor is so that we can overcome it. So let's use that power. And lastly, happy Christmas, Hana Kwanzaa. Okay? Happy holidays to everybody watching, because I'm giving you this gift. If you are woke enough to be here, you can consider yourself served. And when I say you've been served, you have officially been charged with the responsibility of making sure you're not the only woke person in your group. Do not be the only woke person at the family reunion, at your job, in your class. The only way we can really make America great is if we can hold this country responsible for being the fair and just community, society that it claims itself to be, by telling the truth, embracing who we are, and holding one another accountable for exercising our privileges and using our privileges righteously, my fellow Americans. That's what this is about. Don't be afraid of the privilege that you have. It was paid for and it's yours whether you want it or not. But let's use our privilege righteously to bring about a country that we can really be proud of. A country that doesn't need to yell at all the other countries, letting them know that they are number one, but is recognized by the rest of the world as a great place to be because of its just and fair society. So I just want to thank everybody for rocking with me this episode. It was a lot of fun, first video episode. But with that said, I really need everybody's help. I need everybody to like, comment, and subscribe on this post when you see it. Please share it as you can. If you're listening to this on one of these streaming platforms like Spotify, iTunes, or Stitcher, give a review and rate it. Only if it's going to be a 5 rating. If it's going to be a 4 rating, don't even worry about it. But if you're a 5-star person, give me a 5-star rating, because it's going to really help my audience grow and help me reach more people so that I can create more content just like this on a more regular basis. So with that said, thank you so much for tuning in to Langston's World. It's all love. Happy Christmas, Hana Kwanzaa to everybody out there. And let's make this world a better place. Peace.